Hey, what's up, YouTube fans? Something I've talked about on a lot of videos, right, is how in my opinion, right, life is probably an extraordinarily rare phenomenon that does not occur on the vast majority of planets. This may very well be the only planet in our universe where there has been any life, right? And it may well be the case that most universes that have the constants right for life still never get life anywhere within those universes, right? Um, there's a number of reasons why I would argue that, there's the Fermi paradox, right? Which is, the paradox of how we don't have, aliens coming down making contact with us, even though some people who think that there should be life all throughout the universe, they would consider that they would think that we should have by now, and they actually have a term for the paradox of it, supposed paradox, called the Fermi paradox. And I mean, there's also the fact that life, as far as we can tell, only came to exist once on Earth. And there's no known process that allows for life to occur frequently on a large number of the planets. And there are multiverse models that propose that there's likely infinite universes, right? Therefore meaning that the origin that statistical improbabilities regarding the origin of life don't actually need any explanation other than chance, right? Because no matter how rare it is, right, so long as it happens anywhere, that's the only place that we could expect to find ourselves. Because without life, anywhere where there's no life, by extension, there's nothing with a nervous system or anything analogous. And so therefore, conscious creatures like us that have the capacity to understand that life exists, creatures such as that could only find themselves somewhere where there is life, no matter how rare it is, right? And certain cosmological models like infinite multiverse, which is a very likely possibility, right? It allows for all statistically improbable events to occur somewhere within the cosmos, right? And so in any event, it's my view, right, that life is probably extraordinarily rare, but there are some people who take the view that life is not rare and that it occurs on a large number of planets. And one of the best arguments for that is often used as an argument by people who hold that view is they'll point out that the fossil record seems to indicate, right, that life showed up relatively early on the planet Earth, relatively soon after the conditions were such that life could exist. It showed up relatively quickly. There still is a gap of time, but it showed up relatively quickly. And so that's the argument people would use. And then they would say that the reason we don't get any more life on Earth is because it would be outcompeted by already existing life. So this is a decent argument, but there is a good counter argument though, which is that there's likely a anthropic selection effect favoring observers like us finding ourselves on a planet in which life started early, right? Because this is the thing. it took about 3.8 billion years from the start of life on Earth until we ever got humans, right? And it likely takes a comparable amount of time on any given planet that you not only get life, but you get things that have the awareness that life exists on that planet, right? It likely takes a comparable amount of time. And, reasons for why that would be is, you need a lot of time to evolve to a high level of complexity like we have. And also, the more time, the more lineages you get, right? Because as of now, we have millions of species on the planet Earth, right? But it took a long time for us to branch out to that many species. But the more species you have, the higher the odds are that one of them will happen to go down an evolutionary path that leads towards them being highly intelligent creatures like ourselves that are capable of understanding that life does exist and that they are on a planet, right? And so in any event, the longer life exists on a planet, the higher the odds of getting things like us on that planet. And so, therefore, the earlier life starts on a planet, the higher the odds are of getting things like ourselves on it. Because the thing is, life can only exist on a planet for a limited amount of time before it all gets wiped out by some catastrophic event. Because a planet can only exist for so long, that's for one thing. And there's various events that will cause mass extinctions. The fossil record indicates that there's been 5 mass extinction events already on our planet, which the fact that life still, the fact that there was still life that survived after each of those events, there's likely an anthropic selection effect with even that, right? Because that was obviously necessary for us to be here observing ourselves, right? So there's likely an anthropic selection effect with that in of itself, right? Like an observer bias, right? And so in any event, right, because, life can only exist for a limited amount of time before it all gets wiped out, the earlier life starts, the higher the odds are of it existing for a long amount of time, and the higher the odds of it existing for an especially long amount of time, the higher the odds of getting things on that planet that have the level of awareness to know that there is life on the planet and that it's on a planet, right? And so there's therefore an observer bias, right? Observers like ourselves that have awareness of these things, we are more likely to find ourselves on a planet in which life started early, right? Compared to whereas that's not necessarily the norm, right? Because for the reasons I just explained, there's an observer bias, right? And so it could still very well be the case that most planets out there within the cosmos that you ever get life, it doesn't actually start early like this, right? But it's just that the earlier it does start, the higher the odds of it existing as long as it did on Earth, and therefore the higher the odds of getting things like us that have the level of awareness we do to know that there is life, right? And so there are observer biases like this. This is really something we have to factor in anytime we try and make estimations for what will happen on other planets based on what happened on Earth. We have to account for these observer biases, right? Because just because we observe something happening here, right, that doesn't mean that that's the norm on most planets where you get life, because there are certain things necessary to get observers like us, and so therefore observers like us can only find themselves somewhere where it did align in that way, even if that is in the way that it typically aligns, right? Hopefully you guys follow what I'm saying, right? And so um yeah, all right, that's all for now. See you guys.